Okay, let's start. I have only 20 minutes, so I will have to go fast with this. Maybe you will be able to ask some question at the end. So this talk is, the name is Demystifying Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle Database Server Security. Okay, my name is Cesar Cerrudo. I'm running my own company, Argenis. I'm a security research consultant, software architect, blah, blah. When I have audited SQL Server for a long time, I found like 40 security bugs. I have done some superficially auditing on Oracle database servers, and I found 20 security bugs. And the guy, Esteban, that is on the other room talking about Oracle SQL injection that works with me, have found like more than 100 vulnerabilities on Oracle. When I have dealt with both companies, reporting the bugs, I have been on security for almost 5 years. Okay, these all opinions and comments on this presentation is from personal experience and for first-hand information from partners or people that work with me. And this presentation is not paid by Microsoft or Oracle, just in case someone. Okay, you know that the media has strong influence over people. Most people just bog, but what they read, the information sometimes is not very accurate. And this causes loss of money to companies and causes misinformation and propagation of myth. In the last years, I'm sure you have heard this this phrase like SQL Server is very insecure, Oracle database is very secure, or Oracle database server is much more secure than SQL Server. During this presentation, I will show different information that is not about security features of the products. It's about all stuff related with security. And in the end, you will realize how these products are secure nowadays. Okay, let's see some history. On 2000-2001, database security starts to get more attention from media, from people. Then on late 2001 and early 2002, we have the first SQL Server worm that exploited a blank administrator password. By this time, also Oracle launches the Unbreakable campaign, and also a little time after that, Microsoft launches the Trustworthy Computing Initiative. Also by this time, because the worm and because some vulnerabilities were published, SQL Server started to get more media attention. Also, here I started to show this SQL Server. In 2002, we have another worm. This also exploited a blank administration password. On these days, I started to report vulnerabilities to Microsoft, and the security response team of Microsoft wasn't very good. You get wrong answer from them, or you didn't get any answer. Microsoft releases 12 security bulletins, related with SQL Server security, and Service Pack 3 was released. They fixed 2 remote vulnerability, and they fixed almost all the vulnerabilities found by me. Of course, this was after a few months of report. They were very quick in fixing the vulnerabilities. This was the worst, 2002 was the worst SQL Server year because all the vulnerabilities, the worms. In these years, also SQL Server team started a security push. They were like 3 months, almost all the effort dedicated to security. So they claimed that most of the bugs were fixed during the security push. Also in 2002, Oracle released 9 security errors, and there were 7 remote exploitable vulnerabilities. Okay, now in 2003, we have Slammer, the famous Slammer that it hit the internet after 5 months the patch was available. In this year, Microsoft released 2 security bulletins of SQL Server, and there were a remote exploiter vulnerability. By this time, the Microsoft security response team started to improve a bit. Also, we continue in 2003. Oracle released 9 security alerts, and there were 5 remote exploitable vulnerabilities. By this time, I started to take a look at Oracle, and I found 20 security holes. Well, when I started to deal with Oracle Security Response Center, there was no fast response. You had to wait for weeks. Sometimes you didn't get a response. They seemed very amateur. About 2004, we have 1 security bulletin of SQL Server, no remote vulnerabilities, and we have 4 security alerts of Oracle, and there were 3 remote exploitable vulnerabilities. They fixed only one bug found by me after 10 months of the report of that bug. Okay, then we have this year, the current year, Microsoft releases SQL Server Service Pack 2. There were no security bulletins of SQL Server. There is no known security vulnerabilities that are unpatched on SQL Server. And Oracle has released 3 critical patches. They have fixed 19 remote vulnerabilities. They fixed a vulnerability that I reported after 15 months. I wasn't credited, and they fixed some vulnerability found by my colleague Esteban. One of them was reported 1.5 years before the patch. Okay, this was a few time ago. The April CPU of Oracle failed to fix some vulnerability. This clearly means that there was a total quality assurance on the patch. They had to release a patch for the patch, and now I think they are releasing a patch for the patch. With July CPU, a vulnerability that was reported by us, they fixed it only on 10G version. They didn't fix it on release 2. So right now, users of Oracle 9 release 2 are vulnerable. Again, it seemed that there wasn't quality assurance. And right now, we have 100 vulnerabilities reported to Oracle that are unpatched. Okay, here is like a resume. We have in the last 3 years, for SQL Server, we have 3 worms, and for Oracle, we have no worms. On security bulletins, we have 15 security bulletins for SQL Server, and we have 24 security alerts for Oracle. Also, in this time, we have only 2 remote exploitable vulnerabilities on SQL Server and 34 on Oracle. SQL Server has done a strong security push to improve the security of their product, and we haven't any security push for Oracle. And today, on SQL Server, there are unpatched vulnerabilities, and for Oracle Database Server, there are more than 100 unpatched vulnerabilities. Let's see the cons of SQL Server. They have a weak default installation that was improved after Service Pack 3. They have it's very widely deployed on internet, so there are many internet-facing SQL servers, and they are weak deployed with blank passwords, some servers are unpatched. This means that there is a easy target for worms, so a worm can exploit some new vulnerability and can get a big repercussion. SQL Server had 3 worms in a year lapsus. This means that there was a lot of money losses, and this was the cause that grow the SQL Server bad security reputation. Also, SQL Server has like most Microsoft products, has a strong media attention, a massive media attention. Well, let's see some Oracle Database Server cons. It also has a weak default installation that haven't improved in the latest versions. It is still weak, the default installation. They have lots of vulnerabilities. Many are unpatched and they have many remote vulnerabilities. Security patches take sometimes more than a year to be released, or sometimes are not released at all after 2 years or more. And security patches are very extremely difficult to install. It's a pain in the ass to install an Oracle patch. You have to pray for the server to continue working after you install one patch. There are no quality assurance on patches. We have seen this with the problems on April CPU, May CPU, July CPU. Security patches are not publicly available, so people that are testing or are trying Oracle product can patch their servers. If a vulnerability is discovered, they are unpatched. We continue with the Oracle's cons. There are no security improvements over the last years. Many vulnerabilities we have found on 8i version still affect the latest version, so there are like 5 more years of difference in the 8 version and 10C version. The security staff is very responsive. Some of them seem to know nothing about security. Here we have some phrases I have here in these years, like we have like 14 security certification. Who will serve for overflow protocol, so we don't need to fix them. Or can you tell us what vulnerability you have with patches? Or this was the last one. Our development teams neglected to fix the vulnerability in the previous version, so they forgot, no problem. They're more worried about the undefended marketing campaigns, like Unbreakable, all that. So we continue with Oracle Cons. It's a very bad security response center, has not significantly improved over the years. They don't get any vulnerability status. You realize that vulnerability reported by you will be fixed because they tell you sometimes the same day or a couple of days before. They are member of the Organization for Internet Safety, but they never have adopted the guidelines, so I don't know why they are members. But they have a very bad relation with security researchers. You have noticed that. Sure. The vulnerability rates on their product, more on database servers, have not reduced over the years. It's full of vulnerabilities, and every time we search for vulnerability, we find more and find more. There is no free tool to check for security on their products. Okay, now let's see the SQL Server pros. Okay, patches are very easy to install. The most difficult step when you install a patch could be manually copy a file or something like that. Security patches are released very quick after the vulnerability is reported. The patches are publicly available. There have been a huge security efforts on Microsoft, especially on SQL Server team. They are always working on improving security. They contact researchers. They ask what we can do to improve. The the Microsoft Security Response team have improved a lot. Well, the vulnerability rate was drastically reduced on SQL Server in the last years, and they have a free tool to check for security, like Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. Well, let's see the Oracle pros. Well, they don't have internet-facing database servers, so they don't have to worry about worm. They have like 30 remote vulnerability, but they don't have internet-facing servers, so it's no a worry for them. They don't have massive media attention as Microsoft. They have 14 security certifications, so they are very sure. And they have a very good marketing staff. Okay, let's see. I mean that the Oracle service deployed on servers that face internet are very small compared with SQL Server. A server that is directly connected to internet is running a database server. Okay, this is a resume of all the information on SQL Server. We have a good security staff. On Oracle Server, we have unresponsive security staff. SQL Server patches are very easy to install, and the opposite is on Oracle patches. Security patches on SQL Server are released quickly. It's the contrary to Oracle, that they take like 2 or 3 years sometimes to get a patch, and the security patches are available to all public on SQL Server and not on Oracle Server. The vulnerability rate was reduced on SQL Server, and it was not reduced on Oracle. SQL Server has done a lot of security effort, and Oracle hasn't done that. And well, let's continue. Some final conclusions. So, if you think that a database server has unresponsive security staff, has security patches that are extremely difficult to install, take more than a year to release security patches, has not publicly available patches, have not improved security over the years, has a bad security response center, has a bad relation with researchers, has many unpatched vulnerabilities, why do you think that this database server is secure? On the other hand, if you think that a database server that has good security staff, has security patches very easy to install, quickly release patches, the patches are available to all the public, the vulnerability rate has been reduced, has done a lot of security efforts, has improved the security response center, has a good relation with researchers, and have a free tool to check for security, why do you think that this database server is not secure? So, you are very smart, you have the final word, I won't tell you which is more secure. So, this was a last minute slide. I was reading some interesting note, and I want just read this. The researchers has no fault that a product is buggy or has a lot of holes. Researchers just take a look at the software and report the bugs. The problem is the company that released the buggy product, so you have to think twice what you say before saying something. Well, here you have some references. This is just a warning, so someone doesn't believe what I say, I can show. Okay, that's all. I don't know if we have time for some questions.
Could you comment on what you would think the relative security of some of the other databases, say like DB2 or MySQL or Postgres are relative to Oracle and MySQL?
It depends on the database there. For example, MySQL seems to be very secure. I haven't looked much at DB2 or other, but they have their own problems also. I haven't looked in deep to say something very affirmative about them. Also, not much. Yes. The problem that, yeah, maybe you can block those remote vulnerabilities that doesn't require authentication, but there are a lot of vulnerability on Oracle functionality. So if you are a valid user, then you can run just a simple query and own the server. So you can do almost nothing to prevent that because it's valid Oracle functionality you are exploiting. Maybe some advanced IDS, IPS, I will include more to restrict some functionality or to put some rule in place to avoid buffer overflow, something like that. Another question? Yes?
Did Oracle's cache problems result from it just being so friggin' complex underneath?
Sorry, can you say again?
Do you think Oracle's cache quality problems result from the product being too damn complex underneath?
I don't know. You are saying that if the Oracle problems, patches problems can be solved by quality assurance, or I don't know.
He's saying that the cause, isn't the cause of the difficulty to test the patches that Oracle is so complex underneath?
No, the problem with April CPO was that a script wasn't run. So this, that means that they didn't test the patch, because if you test the patch on all the version that the patch was available, you will detect that immediately. It's just 5-minute work. They didn't do it. Yes. They are saying the Oracle work on releasing patches is more difficult because they support many platforms. Yeah, yes, I know that. Yes, they will have a hard shop to build a patch and to test it, but it seems that they are not testing at all, so that there is no excuse for that. The only valid excuse could be that it will take more months to get a fix, but not 2 years or 3 years or not fixing at all. I don't know. That's all? Okay. Thank you for coming.